Political institutions. The political system of Iran is unlike any other in the world today in that it blends a theocracy with a democracy. The theocracy is represented in the national government by the supreme leader and two government bodies, the Guardian Council and the Expediency Council. The President, the Assembly of Religious Experts, and the National Assembly, the Majlis, are democratically elected. Linkage institutions are in various stages of development and tend to be fluid in nature. Linkage institutions. The Constitution guarantees citizens the right to organize and to express themselves, so some institutions that link people to the government have developed. Some organizations, such as interest groups and the press, have developed long before 1979 and continue today. Others, like political parties, had to begin all over again. Political parties. The Constitution provides for political parties, but the government did not allow them until Mohammad Khatami's election as president in 1997. Since then, multiple parties have formed, with most of them organized around personalities, not issues. A number of new parties appeared for the Majlis elections of 2007 and the presidential elections of 2009 and 2013. And only a few have carried over from previous elections, so current parties are highly unstable and very likely to change in the near future. However, the parties usually operate in loose alignments within two main coalitions, the Conservative and the Reformist. The alliance's parties that sponsored presidential candidates in 2013 are Islamic Society of Engineers. This organization is a former member of the Conservative Alliance of Builders of the Islamic Iran. Members include Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, but the society did not support him for president in either 2005 or 2009. In 2013, the party ran Mohammad Bagar Ghalibaf for president. Front of Islamic Revolution, Stability. This conservative coalition was formed in 2011 and ran Saeed Jalili for the president in 2013. Jalili has been Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council as well as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Moderation and Development Party. This political party brands its approach as moderate. The party's 2013 candidate, Mohsen Razai, who ran for president in 2005 and 2009 as well. Combatant Clergy Association. This party was supported in 2013 by the Iranian Reform Movement and represented the reformist coalition, although it has been described as a conservative party in the past. Its candidate, Hassan Rouhani, has been a member of the Assembly of Experts since 1990, as well as a member of the Expediency Council since 1991. Rouhani won the presidential election of 2013. Islamic Coalition Party. This party was founded in 1962, so it's one of the oldest, and it generally is seen as part of the conservative coalition. The party's candidate in 2013 was Ali Akbar Velayati, who had refused to run as a conservative alliance candidate in 2005. He was supported by some conservative groups, but came in 5th out of 6 candidates in 2013. Many political parties of former dissidents are now in exile, but still active. The Liberation Movement, a moderate Islamic party, was established by Mehdi Bazargan, Khomeini's first prime minister, in 1961, but was banned in 2002 as a subversive organization. The National Front, headed by the Shah's dissident Prime Minister Mossadegh in the 1950s, was banned in the late 1980s. Other parties in exile are the Mujahideen, a guerrilla organization that fought the Shah's regime, the Fedayeen, a Marxist guerrilla group that modeled itself after Latin American hero Che Guevara, and Tuda, a communist party. The party system reflects factionalism, or the splintering of the political elites based not just on points of view but also on personalities. Since parties are fluid and weak, they are not vehicles for discussing policy-making alternatives. Instead, factions tend to coalesce before elections and then break apart if their candidates are chosen. Defeated factions tend to stay together between elections in hopes of reversing their fortunes in the next election. Elections. On the national level, citizens over the age of 18, minimum age changed in early 2007 from 15 to 18, may vote for members of the Assembly of Religious Experts, representatives to the Majlis, and the President of the Republic. The Republic is a highly centralized regime, although citizens may also vote for officials on the local level. Election to the Majlis and the presidency are conducted according to plurality or winner-take-all, and no proportional representation is used. However, elections consist of 2 rounds, so that one of the 2 contenders left in the second round will get a majority of the votes. The Majlis elections of 2004 and 2008. The first round elections to the Majlis were held on February 20th, 2004, and they took place after the Guardian Council banned thousands of candidates from running, mainly from the reformist parties. Particularly hard hit was the Islamic Iran Participation Front. Out of a possible 285 seats, 5 seats are reserved for religious minorities, reformist parties could only introduce 191 candidates. Some reformists refused to vote, and the official turnout was only about 51%. Not surprisingly, conservative candidates won about 70% of the seats. In 2008, conservatives held on to about 70% of the seats, but reformists managed to win 46, an increase over the numbers in 2004. The presidential election of 2005. The Constitution provides that presidents may not run for more than 2 terms of office, so President Khatami had to step down in 2005. The Guardian Council disqualified about 1,000 candidates, leaving only 7 to run, some with the support of a party and some not. The results of the first round were very close, with 2 candidates going on to the second round. Akbar Hassemi Rafsanjani, a former president known for his moderate and pragmatic views, 21% of the vote, and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the conservative mayor of Tehran, 19.5% of the vote. Ahmadinejad won in the second round with almost 62% of the vote, since Rafsanjani was not able to organize the reformist vote behind him. Ahmadinejad is known for his populist views, and he announced after his victory that he meant for prosperity to be shared among all classes, not just the elite. The presidential election of 2009. Charges of election fraud were made after the presidential election of 2005, but they were dismissed, even though many were surprised that Ahmadinejad won. One reason for his victory was that many reformists did not vote, since they rejected both major candidates. As the election of 2009 approached, the Iranian reform movement attempted to rally behind one candidate. Many reformists hoped that former President Mohammad Khatami would win the election, but Khatami dropped out of the race and endorsed his former Prime Minister, Mir Hossein Mousavi. One other reformist ran, Mehdi Karoubi, and one conservative, Mohsen Razi, challenged Ahmadinejad for conservative support. The debates leading up to the election focused mainly on the economy, a main concern of Iranian citizens after the global economic crisis of late 2008. Opinion polls, not always very reliable in Iran, showed a close race between Ahmadinejad and Mousavi as the election approached. On June 12th, so the official results, nearly 63% for Ahmadinejad and less than 34% for Mousavi, surprised many people. Record numbers, 85% of the electorate, turned out for the election, and many reformists that had not voted in 2005 went to the polls in 2009. Mousavi urged his supporters to fight the decision, without resorting to violence, and protests in favor of Mousavi broke out in Tehran. Mousavi appealed to the result to the Guardian Council 2 days after the election, and Supreme Leader Khamenei agreed to an investigation into the fraud. The votes were recounted, but Iran's electoral board concluded that Ahmadinejad won the election. When Khamenei publicly endorsed the decision, many criticized him for shutting down the popular outcry prematurely. The inauguration of Ahmadinejad was held in early August, with protests held outside the parliament. In the election's aftermath, many were arrested, and some high-ranked clerics accused foreigners, including some British embassy employees, of stirring up the protests. Mousavi was portrayed as a tool of secular foreigners who plotted for the downfall of the country. The government also claimed to have confessions from top reformers who were arrested, who allegedly pleaded guilty to accusations of organizing a velvet revolution to overthrow the country's leaders. Mousavi and Karoubi were not arrested, but accusations soon surfaced that some of those who had been detained were tortured and or killed by government officials. Mr. Mousavi responded by announcing on his website the formation of a grassroots and social network to promote democracy and adherence to the law. The formation of a new party would have required a government permit, which would have been denied. The election brought many disparate elements of Iran's political culture together for the biggest confrontation since 1979. Although the protests finally cooled, charges of voter fraud continued to circulate, and the legitimacy of the government was shaken to its very core, most profoundly by those who questioned the authority of the supreme leader. The elections of 2012 and 2013. As tensions mounted over the number of issues between Supreme Leader Khamenei and President Ahmadinejad, the legislative election in 2012 was described by many journalists and analysts as a contest between the two men, with Khamenei supporters winning a large majority of the seats. More than 5,000 candidates registered, but more than a third were disqualified by the Guardian Council. 290 seats were up for election, with alliances shifting into two camps: the United Front of Principalists, UFC, supporters of Supreme Leader Khamenei, and the Resistance Front, FSP, supporters of Ahmadinejad. The UFC won 101 seats, 34.8%, and the FSP won 50 seats, 17.2%. Even though most reformist candidates had been disqualified by the Guardian Council, the Reformist Alliance, Democratic Coalition of Reformists, won 43 seats, 14.1%. The presidential election in June of 2013, the first since the disputed election of 2009, took place at a time when international concern for Iran's nuclear program was high. Western sanctions had weakened the Iranian economy, and Israel had threatened a military strike, so international interest was high. In May, the Guardian Council disqualified two prominent candidates, former President Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani and Ahmadinejad's hand-picked choice, Esfandiari Rahim Masheh. Of the 8 candidates selected, one, Hassan Rouhani, a former nuclear negotiator, had even slightly different stances from the traditionalists. 3 of the qualified candidates had direct links to the Supreme Leader Khamenei: Gholam Ali Haddad Adel, a close advisor and relative; Ali Akbar Velayati, his foreign policy advisor; and Iran's top nuclear negotiator, Saeed Jalil. Another candidate, Mohammad Baghar Ghalibaf, mayor of Tehran, had previously served as a commander of the Revolutionary Guard and had played a leading role in the maintenance of Iran's internal security. Although most analysts projected that someone close to the Ayatollah would win, Mr. Rouhani polled votes that would have gone to the 2 disqualified candidates, and in a late surge, he won the election with a majority vote in the first round. Turnout was high, with 72% of the electorate voting, and Rouhani won with 50.7% of the votes, with Baghar Ghalibaf coming in a distant second, with 16.6% of the vote, and Saeed Jalili netting third place with 11.4%. With the backing of former reformist presidents Mohammad Khatami and Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, Rouhani had a powerful mandate to improve Iran's international relations and attempt to negotiate a settlement of Iran's nuclear activities. Interest groups. Since political parties are ill-defined in Iran, it is often difficult to draw the line between parties and interest groups. A large number of groups have registered with the government, including an Islamic Association of Women and a Green Coalition. The parties in exile, such as the National Front, the Liberation Movement, and the Mujahideen, also have members still in Iran that work for their benefit. An important interest group for factory workers is called Workers' House, that operates with the help of its affiliated newspaper, Kar var Kargar, Work and Worker. Their political party, Islamic Labor Party, backed Khatami in the 2000 election, but its coalition with other reformist parties were broken up by the Guardian Council's banning of reformist candidates in 2004, the Majlis election, and 2005 presidential election. Workers' House holds a May Day rally most years, and in 1999 the rally turned into a protest when workers marched to Parliament to denounce conservatives for watering down labor laws. When bus drivers joined the protest, most of central Tehran was shut down. A bus drivers' protest was crushed by the government in 2007. Few interest groups have formed for business, and because private businesses have been crowded out since the revolution of 1979, when many were taken over by the government. Agriculture, internal trade, and distribution are mostly in private hands, but the government controls between 65% to 80% of the economy. Mass media. Over 20 newspapers were shut down shortly after the revolution in 1979, and by 1981 an additional 7 were closed. In 1981, the Majlis passed a law making it a criminal offense to use pen and speech against the government. In more recent years, some of the restrictions have been lifted. The Rafsanjani government permitted some debate in the press on controversial issues during the 1990s, and the Khatami administration issued permits to dozens of new publications, apparently hoping to establish an independent press. However, freedom of the press is still a major issue between conservatives and reformists, and the large-scale student demonstrations in 1999 were sparked by newly imposed restrictions on the media. Shortly after the 2000 Majlis elections, when many reformists were elected, the outgoing Majlis approved a press control law, which the Council of Guardians ruled could not be overturned by the new legislature. Some 60 pro-reform newspapers were shut down by 2002. Radio and television are government-run by the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting, but many newspapers and magazines are privately owned. Compared with other regimes in the region, the Iranian press has more freedom to criticize the government. Iran's elite is well educated, and many of these publications cater to their needs as professional journals, sports magazines, and publications for the fine arts, cinema, and healthcare. Most are non-political, however. A semi-public institution whose directors are appointed by the supreme leader runs the country's two leading newspapers, Etelaat and Kayan.